Alright guys, so Medieval 2 Total War has some of the best mods in the series, hands down. We all know that. Divide and Conquer, Lucium Total War, Steam and Steel, Stainless Steel. I mean, there's just so much out there that's absolutely amazing. But today, I'm going to showcase a mod I've been playing for the last couple of weeks for the first time, and that is Broken Crescent. This is an absolutely brilliant mod. If you're looking for something close to vanilla, but it's new, it's fresh, it's an evolved Crusaders campaign, basically, with a much larger campaign map, lots of really great factions to play as, really interesting, cool battle dynamics and visuals as well. It's just an absolutely amazing time. So let's dive straight in. The campaign start date is 1174 AD. We've got a variety of factions here from the Romans, the Zengids, the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum, all trying to fight over Anatolia. You've got the Ayyubids versus the Kingdom of Jerusalem, of course. Great little standoff there. The Kingdom of Armenia. We've got Makuria below the Ayyubids. We've got the Kingdom of Georgia, the Kipchak Confederacy. We've got the Abbasid Caliphate, which is just a brilliant faction as well. The Emirate of Oman and Yemen. We've got the Khwarezmians, of course, up north, the Ghaznavids, the Ghurids. Going further east here, we've got even Indian factions. So we've got the Mamlakat of Sind, we've got the Aldegazids, the Karakatan Khaganate, the Paramara Rajputs, and the Chauhan Rajputs. There are some brilliant Indian factions here that you don't normally see in a mod, let alone a Medieval 2 mod. So some really, really great factions to get into here. Naturally, of course, I had to try out the Indian faction, so I went over with the Paramaras. I started expanding across the kind of section of the Indian subcontinent that's on the campaign, getting into various regions, trying to destroy the other Indian Raja factions here as well, getting into diplomatic contact with the Arabian world, going as far west as the Romans. Like, it's been such a fun campaign with these guys. Their mechanics are really cool. Their unit rosters, a very, a huge variety here as well. And their elephants are incredibly impressive. I mean, of all the factions I've played a few. The unit visuals, I think, with the Indian factions are probably my favorite. Really immersive, really, really fun campaign and battle experience with them overall. So highly recommend you try these out. Of course, my next faction had to be the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Going up against the Ayyubids is always a really fun, fantastic time in any mod, any campaign. And it's no exception here as well. I think the Broken Crescent team have done such a good job of creating such a menacing Ayyubid presence on the campaign. Loads of regions, huge armies, and being the Kingdom of Jerusalem, you have to expand out a lot, take out these regions that are rebel controlled as quickly as possible, grow an economy, and start creating this kind of defensive wall against the Ayyubids in the south as well. It's just such a fun campaign. Really great characters here from the movies like The Kingdom of Heaven, and historically accurate kind of characters and circumstances here. Their unit visuals, their unit rosters are absolutely insane. I love their unit cards. Such a cool campaign to get into. And then finally, of course, I had to try out the Romans. They've got a very interesting situation, owning most of the northern coast of Anatolia and the southern coast as well, up to Crete. You've got other kingdoms around like Georgia and Armenia that are worth allying and trying to basically kind of corner off the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum in the middle and start invading their cities, try and knock on some doors. The problem is, of course, they're super powerful. They've got loads and loads of full stack armies ready to go, and there are so many cities that you own that you can't defend effectively. It's so difficult to manage your money, decide what to invest into, build up some armies, and actually begin invading the Seljuk Sultanate of Rome. But the battles have been so fun. There are some really dynamic events and mechanics here as well. I think at one point, like you can see here, I had a rebel army besiege Constantinople. So it's just really, really fun and interesting. It's one of my, again, like the others, my favorite unit rosters in the game as well. They've got some great visuals here, lots of variability in terms of what you can use tactically, unit roles on the battlefield. It's just so much fun. Such a great faction to get into in this mod. And this is just 3 of the factions that are playable in Broken Crescent. There are so many others out here that are just as interesting, challenging, and replayable, unique kind of unit rosters, mechanics, buildings, cultures, religions, historically accurate, characters. It's all just absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm very curious to try out Makuria, which is down below the Ayyubids. The Ayyubids go through a bit of a civil war after a few dozen turns. Salah al-Din comes into the play, into the kind of of center stage of the mod and starts invading the Kingdom of Jerusalem. So having Mercuria invade the Ayyubids, you've got so many others. The Khwarezmians, Armenia, the Gurids. There are some great, interesting other kind of factions to get into to check out their mechanics, their buildings, their unit rosters as well. So there's plenty to offer here from a content perspective in Broken Crescent. Finally, guys, I want to do a bit of a comparison in this video to other famous mods for Medieval 2. So you've got Tsardom's Total War, of course, probably one of the biggest medieval mods you can get for Medieval 2. It's much more Western focused. You can play a variety of Italian factions. You've got some French and Holy Roman Empire and various other kind of factions dotted around on the west side as well. Balkan factions, of course, and kind of more Russian factions up on the northern side. And it's just a very different mod compared to Broken Crescent in terms of content and mechanics and the dynamic events. There's a lot more going on in Tsardom. So compared to Broken Crescent, it's much more complicated and in depth. And then you've got something like Stainless Steel, which is even grander and bigger. I mean, people swear by Stainless Steel, and I love it. I've played a lot of it. Broken Crescent is basically a much smaller scope compared to what's here. It's much more grand campaign, loads of different types of cultures and religions. It's a much more challenging campaign, I would say, as well, Stainless Steel, from an economy perspective especially. There's a much more integrated, interesting tax system. The recruitment and upkeep costs are much more difficult to deal with. Like, it's a very interesting, in-depth mod, very reminiscent for me of DEI on Rome 2. So a lot of the mechanics you have to wrap your head around: population, supply, upkeep, recruitment, tax system, all of that, wrap your head around and actually really get to know before you can get into a campaign and expand and actually progress against all these systems kind of bootstrapping you and trying to keep you down. And then the final mod I want to compare us to here with Broken Crescent is Vanilla Beyond, because Broken Crescent is so similar to the vanilla experience, just a bit more expanded and interesting. You've got lots of similarities here with Vanilla Beyond in terms of new playable campaign areas, new factions that you can get into. The unit rosters are a bit more developed with new units for each of these factions, but it's very, very vanilla, right? And that's why I think it's probably the most comparable here with Broken Crescent. Broken Crescent is just as simple, streamlined, it's not overly complicated, especially compared to Tsardom's or Stainless Steel. Things are very vanilla, essentially, from a gameplay perspective. And in that respect, it's very comparable to Vanilla Beyond and other vanilla mods like it. Vanilla Beyond is basically grand campaign, evolved, much better, much more interesting bug fixes, etc. Broken Crescent is basically that for the Crusades campaign, just expanded out with loads of new regions, religions, factions, all the way far east to the Indias, with great replayability there as well. So very comparable. I prefer Broken Crescent, of course. So yeah, Broken Crescent is an amazing mod that I highly recommend, especially if you've been playing a lot of the other mods for Medieval 2. I've covered a lot of these mods on this game, whether it's Stainless Steel, Tsardom's, Insularis, Draco, Vanilla Beyond. There are so many, dozens and dozens of massive overhauls for Medieval 2 that are brilliant. But if you've never heard of Broken Crescent, if this is the first time you're seeing it, or if you're seeing it again after a long time not playing it, this is your sign. Get back into it to try it out. There are so many brilliant factions here to get into, whether it's the Ayyubids, the Romans, the Khwarezmians, the Indian faction, the East, the Rajas. There are some really, really great replayable factions here. The campaign map is one of my favorites. Next to Tsardom's, it's a great, really extensive campaign map that you can really get into and explore and expand into. There's some really, really great modding being done here with Broken Crescent. So yeah, highly recommend you check it out, guys. I've been playing it for the last couple weeks. These are the 3 factions that I've been really enjoying, but I definitely can't imagine some of these others are just as fun as well. And that's essentially it for today, guys. So I've dropped a link to the ModDB page in the video description below. It's super easy to install, just like any other Medieval 2 mod, really. You just download it, unpack it to the various folder locations, and you're basically good to go. It's got its own launcher as well, so it's really, really user-friendly. This has been Broken Crescent. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, give it a like and drop any thoughts or questions in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of Broken Crescent. I'd love to hear what you think. And subscribe to the channel to see more videos, more mod spotlights just like this. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.